The desert was silent under the silver light of the moon. Waves of sand stretched into the distance, glowing faintly as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Aaron stood near the edge of the coast where the sand met the dark waters of the ocean. His scanning machine hummed softly, its green light flashing as it read the depths beneath the dunes. Aaron was not a man who sought fame or wealth. He was quiet, patient, and deeply curious about the past. While others rushed to uncover gold or jewels, he searched for forgotten stories, voices left behind by people who once walked the earth. To him, the desert was not empty. It was alive with whispers. Every grain of sand hid something waiting to be remembered. He bent over the machine again, brushing dust from the screen. The signal had appeared only a few minutes ago, faint but steady like a rhythm carried through stone and water. It repeated again and again, too regular to be caused by shifting sand or ocean waves. His brow furrowed. "This cannot be a mistake," he murmured. Behind him, his team worked lazily around the camp. Rafi, his friend and fellow archaeologist, stirred the fire for tea. Mira was sketching broken shards they had collected earlier that day. Two younger students, eager but often distracted, were laughing quietly as they compared their notes. None of them paid much attention to Aaron. He walked back to the camp and placed his notes on the table. "I have found something," he said. His voice was calm but firm. Rafi looked up. "Another broken reading?" "No, it is different." A signal, repeating from beneath the dunes near the shoreline. Too clear to be natural. Mira raised an eyebrow. "Signals do not come from sand and stone. Maybe it is interference from the ocean." Aaron shook his head. "The ocean does not repeat patterns like this. It is too precise." The younger students leaned closer. "So what do you think it is?" one asked, his eyes shining with excitement. Aaron paused. He knew better than to leap to conclusions. Archaeology demanded patience, and the desert often tricked even the sharpest mind. Yet something inside him stirred. It was not only science but instinct. "I do not know yet," he admitted, "but I will find out." The night grew colder as the wind carried sand across their tents. The team soon went to rest, but Aaron remained awake, his machine still tuned to the strange rhythm. Each pulse seemed to echo within him like a distant drumbeat. He marked the intervals carefully in his notebook, drawing lines across the page. Hours passed. The campfire sank into embers. Above, stars shifted slowly, as if moving to the same rhythm he was recording. Aaron lifted his head and stared at the heavens. Could it be chance? Or had the ancients built something beneath the ocean sands that spoke with the sky? He remembered the old stories told by desert wanderers. They spoke of a palace swallowed by the sea long ago, a place where a ruler of great wisdom had hidden his treasures. Most dismissed the tales as myths no more real than mirages. Yet myths often hid seeds of truth. Aaron closed his notebook and rose. He walked toward the shoreline, the cool water brushing against his boots. He listened. Beneath the sound of waves, he imagined he could hear the same pulse, faint but insistent. His heart quickened. The next morning, he shared his findings again. The team gathered around the machine as the signal flashed across the screen. This time, the rhythm was stronger, as though the earth itself was calling to be heard. Mira crossed her arms. It could be an old shipwreck with equipment still working somehow. Or metal buried by storms. Rafi rubbed his chin. It does not feel like that. Look at the way it repeats, like a message waiting. The younger students were already whispering about secret tombs and hidden kings. Aaron stayed silent, though his mind raced. He could not shake the feeling that something important rested beneath their feet, waiting for the right moment to be found. By evening, Aaron convinced them to follow him closer to the source. They carried their tools and lights, setting out across the sand as the tide pulled back from the shore. The air smelled of salt and gulls cried overhead. The machine's signal grew sharper with every step. Finally, they stood before a small ridge where the dunes sloped steeply into the sea. Aaron pressed the device to the ground. The pulse rang loud, steady, undeniable. He turned to the others. "Here," he said simply. The team fell quiet. The ocean roared behind them, but the silence among the group was heavier. Each of them felt it now, the sense that beneath the ocean sands lay something vast, something untouched for centuries. For the first time in years, Aaron allowed himself a smile. His instincts had not betrayed him. Whatever lay buried here was not just stone or treasure. It was a voice still speaking after ages of silence, calling out through time, and he at last had heard it. The morning sun rose over the desert, painting the dunes in gold and red. Aaron stood at the ridge where the sand sloped into the sea. His machine was still pulsing with that steady rhythm, a hidden heartbeat below the waves. The others joined him, their faces filled with both excitement and doubt. Rafi placed a hand on his shoulder. If there is something here, we must reach it before the tide covers it again. Mira adjusted her pack and frowned. We cannot simply dig. The ocean will not allow us to take our time. Aaron nodded. We will wait for the low tide. When the water draws back, we search for an entrance. The signal grows stronger when the waves retreat. That means something lies just beneath the surface. The younger students were already pacing with restless energy, pointing at dark shapes revealed when the tide fell. Stones peeked out from the sand, worn smooth but too straight to be natural. Aaron knelt beside one of them. His hand traced the line. It was carved, not broken by chance. By afternoon, the tide was at its lowest. The sea had pulled back far, revealing a shallow trench along the coast. Water shimmered inside, but beneath it the outlines of stone walls became clear. The group stared in silence. It is not a myth, one student whispered. Rafi smiled, though uneasily. The palace of the forgotten Pharaoh. Perhaps the sea kept its secret longer than anyone believed. They carried ropes, lanterns, and diving gear. Arun led the way, stepping carefully into the trench. The water was cold against his skin, but excitement burned warmer inside him. Every step revealed more of the structure. Pillars lying broken, walls half buried in sand, and what looked like the arch of a doorway leaning into shadow. Mira gasped as she brushed aside seaweed clinging to the stone. Symbols were carved into the arch. They were not like the common hieroglyphs she had studied. These symbols curved in strange loops, some resembling stars, others like flowing water. This writing is older than the dynasties, she said, her voice trembling with awe, or it belongs to something we have never seen before. Aaron pressed his palm against the stone. The pulse of the signal grew stronger, echoing through the machine strapped to his belt. He felt it in his hand, a faint vibration through the rock as if the palace itself was breathing. Here is the gate, he said. The trench grew darker as clouds covered the sun. The team lit lanterns, their yellow light reflecting off the water. Aaron tied a rope around his waist and looked at the others. I will go first. If the passage is safe, you will follow. Rafi gripped the rope. Do not take long. If the tide rises, it will trap us all. Arun inhaled deeply, then ducked beneath the arch. The water closed over his head, chilling him to the bone. He pushed forward, guided by the glow of his lantern. The passage sloped downward, stone walls pressing close on either side. At last his feet touched solid ground again and he rose into air. He coughed, gasping with relief. To his shock, the chamber beyond was not flooded. Cracks in the ceiling allowed thin streams of air to seep through, keeping the space alive. He raised his lantern. The light fell upon smooth walls covered in carvings. Golden paint still clung to some figures, though faded with age. They showed men and women standing beside tall towers, pointing to the stars. The others soon joined him, dripping wet but wide-eyed with wonder. Mira walked slowly along the walls, her fingers trembling as she traced the carvings. This is not only a tomb, she whispered. This is a story. Whoever built this wanted to be remembered. The students hurried to sketch the figures, their lanterns flickering across the chamber. Rafi studied the ceiling. Look at the cracks. The sea has tried to swallow this place, but something keeps it standing. The builders knew it would sink, yet they prepared for survival. Aaron moved deeper into the chamber. Another archway led farther down, where the signal's pulse grew louder. It was no longer just a sound from his machine. It echoed in the very stones, steady and patient, guiding them forward. The group hesitated at the threshold. The passage was steep and shadowed, the air heavy with the smell of salt and age. Aaron turned to them. His eyes shone with a mixture of fear and determination. We came here to find the truth. This is the path. If you wish to turn back, I will not stop you, but I will go on. Rafi stepped forward without a word, his lantern held high. Mira followed, though her lips pressed tightly as if holding back questions. The students, though frightened, could not resist the call of discovery. Together they moved into the darkness. Their footsteps echoed against the stone. The walls narrowed, then opened into another chamber. This one was vast, its roof lost in shadow, pillars rising like trees in a silent forest. Water dripped from above, but the floor was dry. In the center of the chamber stood a statue of a man in royal robes. His face was calm, his hands resting on a staff carved with the same star-like symbols. The eyes of the statue glimmered faintly, catching the lantern light as if alive. The group fell silent. The only sound was the soft hum from Aaron's machine. The pulse matched the beat of their hearts. Aaron whispered almost in reverence, "We have opened the gate, and now the palace will tell its story." The statue stood tall in the chamber, its calm face watching over the explorers as though it had waited centuries for their arrival. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the slow dripping of water and the faint hum that came from the stone itself. Aaron lifted his lantern higher, letting the light sweep across the carved figure. The details were too fine to be the work of chance. Every line of the robes, every curve of the staff had been made with careful hands. "This is not a statue of any ruler we know," Mira said softly. "The style is different. The symbols on his staff do not belong to any dynasty we have studied. It is as though he was a king from another time entirely." Rafi walked around the base of the statue. His boots echoed in the chamber, and he called out, "There are inscriptions here. Come look." The group gathered as Aaron brushed away dust and sand. Carved into the base were lines of symbols, some shaped like stars, others like flowing rivers. To the students they looked like decoration, but Aaron felt something deeper. He touched the symbols, and for a moment he imagined a faint warmth pulsing beneath his hand. "These are not just words," he whispered. "They are part of the signal we heard. This palace is alive in its own way." Mira squinted at the carvings. "I think I can make sense of some parts. Look at these lines here. They speak of a ruler who saw the flood coming, a flood that would swallow his kingdom. He ordered his builders to protect his knowledge beneath the sea, where time could not steal it." The students leaned closer, eyes wide. "So he built this place knowing it would sink?" one of them asked. "Yes," Mira answered. "He built not for himself, but for those who would come later. He wanted his wisdom to survive." Aaron stepped back and gazed at the statue again. The ruler's calm eyes seemed to shine in the lantern light. This pharaoh ruled not with swords or armies, but with foresight. He trusted the ocean to guard his palace until the right moment. The group explored the rest of the chamber. Along the walls were murals painted in colors that had somehow survived the weight of centuries. They showed great rivers, fields of crops, and people building tall towers. Above them, the stars were painted in patterns that did not match the skies they knew. Some showed constellations that no longer existed. Others looked like maps, as if pointing the way beyond Earth. Rafi placed his hand on one mural where figures stood around a glowing object. "Look at this. It is no ordinary flame. It is shaped like the sun, yet it rests in their hands. Perhaps they found a way to capture the power of the sky." Mira shook her head in wonder. If this is true, they were far ahead of their time. "We thought we were the first to dream of such things, yet here it is, painted by hands long gone." The younger students sketched quickly, their pencils scratching across paper. They whispered excitedly about lost civilizations, about secrets buried under the sea that could change everything. But Aaron stayed quiet. He felt the weight of the discovery pressing on him. This was more than history. The signal, the writing, the murals all pointed to something greater. It was not only about a kingdom lost to the waves. It was about knowledge left behind for those who came after. As they studied, the hum grew stronger. Aaron followed the sound to the far side of the chamber, where another archway opened into darkness. Above the arch was a carving of the same ruler, holding a staff that pointed toward the stars. Beneath him were more symbols. Aaron could not read them, but he felt their meaning. This was the way to the heart of the palace. He called the others. "The signal leads here," Rafi frowned. "Deeper still. We must be careful. The air may not last forever in these chambers." Mira placed her hand on the arch. "But if the Pharaoh built this to last, he would not have left the heart unprotected. There will be air, and there will be more answers." The students looked nervous, but their curiosity burned stronger than their fear. Together, they lit fresh lanterns and prepared to move on. Aaron tied a rope at the arch so they could find their way back. Then he stepped through, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The passage beyond was narrow and steep, but as they descended, the hum turned into a steady beat, like a drum guiding them forward. The walls glowed faintly with minerals that shimmered in their light, giving the impression of stars scattered across the stone. Finally, the passage opened into another chamber. This one was even larger, with a domed ceiling high above. In the center stood a platform of stone and metal shaped like a circle. Strange machines rested upon it, their surfaces smooth and untouched by rust. Around the walls were more murals, but these showed not rivers and fields, but the vastness of space, planets, moons, and stars. Mira gasped. It is not only a tomb, it is a library, a place to store the wisdom of the heavens. Aaron stepped onto the platform, his lantern casting shadows across the machines. He felt the hum strongest here, as though the palace itself was speaking. His heart beat faster. The Pharaoh's legacy was not simply wealth or power. It was knowledge hidden away until the right hands came to find it. He turned to the others, his eyes bright. We are standing in the heart of his vision. This is what he left behind. This is his gift to humanity. The chamber was wide and silent, its domed ceiling stretching so high it seemed to vanish into the dark. Arun's lantern sent golden light across the walls, revealing images of stars, planets, and strange shapes that looked like maps of the heavens. The explorers stood in awe, their voices hushed as though they had entered a sacred place. In the middle of the chamber stood the circular platform of stone and metal. It was smooth and unbroken, yet it looked as if it had been designed to move or open. Around the platform, faint carvings glowed where the lantern light touched them. They looked like constellations, though not the same ones they saw in the night sky. Some were unfamiliar, almost as if drawn from another world. This is not only a palace, Mira whispered. It is a message. Whoever built this wanted those who entered to look upward, beyond the earth. Rafi bent close to one of the glowing carvings. These lines here? They shift slightly when I move the light. See how the stars change? They are not fixed drawings. They are like a map that responds to how it is seen. The students gasped and hurried to copy the patterns into their notebooks. Aaron, however, was drawn to the center. He stepped onto the circular platform. At first, nothing happened. Then the hum that had followed them since the shore grew louder, and the floor beneath his feet vibrated gently. A thin beam of light rose from the center of the platform, reaching toward the ceiling. The chamber brightened as the dome above came alive. Stars appeared one by one, glowing faintly at first, then brighter until the ceiling resembled the night sky itself. The explorers looked upward in wonder. It was as if they had stepped outside the earth and into the heavens. Mira held her breath. It is a star map, but it is not our sky. Look carefully. The constellations are different. Aaron studied the patterns. Some stars matched their known constellations, but others formed shapes he had never seen before. One cluster in particular shone more brightly than the rest, forming a spiral that pointed downward to the platform. As if answering their curiosity, the platform shifted. Circles of stone turned quietly, revealing layers of symbols carved in rings. They aligned with the star patterns above, creating a map that spanned not only their world, but the skies beyond. It is a library, Aaron said, his voice steady, though his heart raced. This place was built to teach. The Pharaoh did not want his knowledge buried with him. He wanted it to reach the future. Rafi pointed to one section of the dome where a line of stars curved toward a glowing figure. That looks like a path. Could it be a guide for travel? Mira nodded slowly. If so, it means they had knowledge of the heavens far greater than we thought possible. Perhaps they dreamed of reaching beyond the earth. The students whispered among themselves, torn between fear and excitement. To them, the palace no longer felt like a tomb. It was something far greater, a vessel of secrets that could change their understanding of history. Arun walked slowly around the platform, touching the glowing rings of symbols. As his hand passed over them, the stars above shifted, rearranging themselves. The map changed to reveal different patterns. First their world, then the moon, then planets beyond. It was a moving archive of knowledge, a way to teach travelers of the skies. He stopped and looked back at his companions. This is what the Pharaoh wanted to protect. He knew his kingdom would fall, but he wanted his wisdom to last. He wanted humanity to look up and not down, to dream of the stars. The chamber seemed to agree with him, for the hum grew louder and steadier. The light filled every corner of the dome until even the smallest carvings glowed. It felt as if the palace itself was listening, waiting for them to understand. Rafi's voice was low, almost fearful. If this knowledge were shared with the world, it could change everything. But it could also bring conflict. Nations might fight to control it. Mira placed her hand on the platform. That may be true. Yet knowledge cannot be hidden forever. The Pharaoh hid it here, but he also left a path to it. That means he trusted that one day the right people would come. The students looked to Arun, their eyes searching his face for guidance. He felt the weight of their gaze and the weight of the chamber pressing on him. He was no ruler, no king, no conqueror. He was a quiet man with a love for the past. Yet at that moment he understood that this discovery was more than a personal achievement. It was a gift to all of humanity. The spiral of bright stars above pulsed once like a heartbeat. Arun lifted his lantern and the stars shifted again, forming new constellations that stretched far into the distance. They pointed the way toward something greater, something beyond their reach for now. He lowered the lantern and the stars dimmed, returning to silence. The chamber grew still once more, the hum fading to its steady rhythm. The explorers stood in the quiet, each lost in thought. Finally, Arun spoke. The Pharaoh has shown us his legacy. The palace is not his tomb. It is a doorway to the stars, and we have only begun to open it. The others nodded, their faces lit not only by lantern light but by wonder. Deep in the palace beneath the ocean sands, they had stepped into a dream that had waited for centuries. And the dream was far from over. The explorers stood in the chamber of stars, their hearts still racing from the vision of constellations across the dome. The hum of the palace had returned to a quiet rhythm, but Arun felt it was not silence. It was waiting. The air was heavy like the stillness before a storm. Arun stepped carefully from the circular platform. His lantern light danced across the walls, glimmering against the carved constellations. The palace has shown us its knowledge, he said slowly, but I feel there is more. This is not the end. Mira looked uneasy. The Pharaoh did not guard his secrets with locks or doors. Perhaps he guarded them with something else. Rafi frowned. What do you mean? Before Mira could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. Dust fell from the high ceiling. The glowing carvings along the walls brightened. The hum grew stronger, deep and powerful, vibrating through their bones. The students clutched their notebooks to their chests, wide-eyed with fear. Then it happened. At the edge of the chamber, where tall stone figures stood in shadows, one of them moved. A statue shaped like a towering guardian lifted its arm. Sand poured from its joints as it straightened, its eyes flickering with blue light. The sound of grinding stone filled the chamber as another figure stirred, then another. The explorers froze. The guardians were massive, their heads nearly reaching the dome, their arms thick like tree trunks. Yet they moved with grace, not clumsy like statues dragged to life. Their eyes glowed brighter, casting beams of pale light across the chamber. One of the students whispered, his voice trembling, "They are alive." Mira's hand tightened on her lantern. "No, not alive. They are guardians, built to protect this place." Rafi pulled the students closer to him. "If they see us as intruders..." He stopped as the first guardian stepped forward. The floor shook under its weight. It approached the platform towering above Arun, and then to everyone's shock it bent one knee. Slowly, it lowered itself until it knelt before him. The blue light in its eyes dimmed to a soft glow. From its chest a small crystal emerged, floating gently into the air. It hovered toward Arun, glowing with the same rhythm as the hum of the palace. Arun stared at it frozen. He felt every eye in the chamber on him. His hands trembled as he reached forward. The crystal settled into his palm, warm and pulsing like a living heart. The hum grew steady, matching the beat of his pulse. Mira gasped. "It has chosen you." Rafi stepped closer, his eyes wide. The guardians were not made to destroy intruders. They were made to judge, to test if the one who entered was worthy. The other guardians did not move. They stood silent, their glowing eyes fixed on Arun as if waiting for his next action. Arun closed his hand around the crystal. He felt a rush of images flash through his mind. He saw stars shifting, maps unfolding, towers of light rising from the desert. He saw people long gone, their faces calm as they built this palace with knowledge that seemed beyond their time. And he saw the Pharaoh himself, standing tall, his staff pointing to the heavens. Arun staggered, the vision fading as quickly as it had come. He looked down at the crystal. Its glow pulsed softly, patient as if it carried endless knowledge within. "This is no treasure," he said, his voice shaking. "It is a key." Mira looked at the guardians. "A key to what?" Arun lifted the crystal slightly. The star map on the dome shifted again, brighter this time. Paths of light stretched from their world into the vast unknown. The palace itself seemed to respond, its hum becoming music, low and steady. Rafi stared upward. "It is a key to the stars. The Pharaoh left us not only his wisdom but a way forward. The students could not speak. They clung to each other, their young faces pale but filled with wonder. The kneeling guardian slowly rose to its full height. It did not take back the crystal. Instead, it stepped backward and stood still once more as if its task was complete. The others did not move either. They were silent watchers now, their judgment given. The chamber grew still again, but the air was different. The explorers felt it in their hearts. They were no longer just visitors in a forgotten palace. They had been chosen. Aaron held the crystal close to his chest. He felt its warmth spread through him, not as power but as responsibility. This was not a gift to be used carelessly. It was a trust handed down across centuries. Mira spoke softly, her eyes on the glowing dome. The Pharaoh did not build this place for himself. He built it for the future. He believed humanity would rise higher if it proved worthy. Aaron nodded. He could feel the weight of her words in his soul. The palace had not been waiting for treasure hunters. It had been waiting for someone to listen. The hum faded back to its quiet rhythm. The light of the dome dimmed, though the stars still shone faintly above. The guardians remained motionless, their eyes soft but watchful. Aaron turned to his companions. "We came here searching for the past, but what we have found is a message for the future." And though fear still lingered in their hearts, so too did wonder. For deep beneath the ocean sands in the Pharaoh's hidden palace, the first step of that future had already begun. The chamber was silent once more. The guardians stood motionless, their glowing eyes dim but steady, as if they were patient watchers waiting for a decision. In Aaron's hand, the crystal pulsed with quiet rhythm, warm against his skin. The others gathered close, their lanterns flickering across the strange star map above. Rafi spoke first. "This is power beyond anything we know. If it holds the secrets of the stars, then it could guide ships, bring endless energy, or even open paths to other worlds." His voice was low, heavy with awe and fear. Mira folded her arms. Her gaze was fixed on the crystal. "But power is dangerous. If we take this to the world, leaders will fight over it. Nations will not share such knowledge. They will try to control it." The younger students, silent until now, looked back and forth between them. One whispered, "Maybe that is why the Pharaoh hid it. He knew it would bring conflict if found too soon." Aaron listened quietly. The voices of his companions echoed in the vast chamber, but in his heart he still felt the hum of the palace. It was steady, patient, reminding him that the crystal was not a weapon. It was knowledge, and knowledge could either build or destroy depending on those who carried it. He lifted the crystal slightly. At once the star map on the dome shifted again. Trails of light stretched outward, forming new constellations pointing to places far beyond their world. Planets glowed faintly, some bright, some dim, as though offering paths to those who dared to travel. The explorers stared upward in silence. It was not a map for their eyes alone. It was a guide, left behind by a ruler who believed that humanity was not meant to remain bound to one world. Mira spoke softly, almost to herself. "He trusted the future. He believed we would be ready." Rafi shook his head. "But are we ready? We argue, we fight, we divide ourselves even over land and water. What would we do with the secrets of the stars?" Aaron closed his hand around the crystal. The star map dimmed slightly as though respecting his hesitation. He felt the warmth spread through him, calm and steady. It reminded him not of war but of responsibility. "The Pharaoh tested us," he said slowly. "He did not set guardians to strike us down. He set them to watch, to see if we would seek knowledge for greed or for truth. They gave me this crystal because we came not with weapons but with open minds." The students nodded quickly, their young faces full of belief. "We must protect it," one said. "Not hide it forever, but keep it safe until the world is ready." Mira looked at Aaron. "And who will decide when the world is ready?" "That choice is heavy." Aaron felt the weight of her words. He was no ruler, no prophet, no king. He was simply an archaeologist who had followed the whispers of the desert. Yet in this chamber, with the crystal in his hand, he carried the trust of a ruler who had lived thousands of years ago. The hum of the palace deepened. The dome above flickered, showing scenes instead of stars. For a brief moment they saw images of tall towers that drew power from waves and wind, machines that lit cities without smoke, and ships that sailed through the heavens guided by the same constellations on the dome. It was a glimpse of what could be. Then the images faded, leaving only the faint glow of stars once more. The group stood in silence, shaken by what they had seen. Rafi spoke at last. If such knowledge is given too soon, it will destroy us. But if it is kept hidden forever, it may be lost again. The choice must be careful. Aaron lowered the crystal to his chest. Then we will not rush. We will learn first, understand what this palace has left us, and guard it. The time to share will come, but not now. Mira exhaled, her face softening. Perhaps that is the answer the Pharaoh hoped for. Not hunger for power, but patience. The guardians did not move, but their eyes flickered once, almost like a silent nod. The hum of the palace softened again, as if approving the choice. The students wrote quickly in their notebooks, sketching the stars, recording every word, though their hands shook. They knew they were part of something greater than any history book could hold. The tide outside began to rise. A distant roar of water echoed through the stone halls. Time was reminding them that the palace could not stay open forever. Aaron looked back at the crystal glowing in his palm. The palace gave us its truth, he said quietly. It is not a tomb, not a treasure, but a promise. A promise that humanity can rise higher if we choose wisely. The others nodded. Fear had not vanished, but it was mixed now with hope. The rising truth was not about what lay beneath the sands. It was about what humanity could become. The hum faded to its quiet heartbeat. The chamber dimmed until only their lanterns lit the way. The explorers gathered their tools and prepared to leave. Yet as they turned back toward the passage, each of them glanced once more at the silent guardians. They would remember those glowing eyes forever. They would remember the gift of the crystal. And they would remember that deep beneath the ocean sands, a forgotten ruler had trusted them with the future.